So this is Welcome to the Shit Show.
Welcome.
Or actually, it's a shit show.
And we're welcoming you to it.
Exactly.
What is the shit show? What are we trying to make this shit show all about?
Well, I think our original conversations have been our frustration with the counseling field, the marriage and family therapy field, that we get clients that come into our office and they have experienced a shit show in their counselor therapist's office. And so we want to welcome you to that, but maybe something like that.
Frustration is an interesting word. We'd have to break that down a little bit further.
I think so.
Because inside of it, I'm not frustrated in the work. I'm frustrated in the...
And the people not doing counseling and marriage and family therapy right.
Okay. I don't necessarily believe in right or wrong, but...
But there is a wrong way of doing marriage and family therapy.
For sure.
And we've seen a lot of that.
Definitely.
Come through our offices, and we think that there is a way, or there's several ways to approach it that tend to be more effective, tend to be more helpful.
Yeah, in many ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess inside of that, tapping into that idea of frustration, my frustration is the ability to have an effect on more people and having the same conversation, client after client after client after client, or talking around the same topics over and over and over again. And so my head, when we were talking about this, is talking around those universal truths or those ideas inside of counseling that we process every day with each client.
Mm-hmm.
That if we put that into a platform that other people can access and utilize without coming into the office, there could be a benefit for them. Mm-hmm. And one of the hesitations always was the confidentiality and all of that. And so how do we create this where people can come in and just talk about it, where it's not counseling, we're just talking about what we do and what we know. And we're not signing up for the whole, it's super secret, it's super bad that you're in counseling, nobody can know you're in counseling kind of mentality. I hate that mentality. So I respect it, but I hate it.
So the idea of the shit show is to address our belief that going to counseling as a couple, or even individually, should be part of your normal health regimen.
Right.
That it is not seen as I'm sick or, diagnosable, you're going to get wrapped up in a straitjacket, or it's something that it means that your character is flawed. It is more of, this is a part of life, and talking through somebody that's objective can actually be really helpful.
Yeah, it's processing.
And there is, the shit show part of that is, there are people that do that well, and there are people that could do it better.
Sure.
And then also addressing the issue of couples therapy in terms of the shit show is that there are some things that we see and what we have seen over a decade that couples go round and round about, that it's the same old shit that this couple or that couple, my couple, your couple go through, and procedurally it could be a myriad of different scenarios, situations, and approaches, and how you deal with it procedurally can be really similar, and you can be really effective if you just look at it as a process thing rather than a content thing.
My head was on content and process. You're summating content and process right there. That's summarizing content and process. And while the content of what people are saying and doing inside of their relationship, there is a process that is more effective in communication and understanding each other. That we have our rules of engagement. We have those pieces of truth that if you accept and learn how to utilize them, and learning how to utilize them as one thing, putting them into practice is a whole other situation, because it is a struggle. There's the shit show, because it's so simple in theory, but in practice it's very difficult, because we're dealing with all of our emotions and all of the other pieces of it. So it's that cognitive processing versus that emotional awareness, and which one leads you. And more times than not, when relationships come into my office, inside of their relationship, they're leading with emotion over and over and over and over again, and the communication breaks down, and nobody ends up feeling heard. They feel distance, and hence they end up in my office trying to solve the communication problem. Well, it's because you're communicating purely emotional.
Yeah, and when you're emotional, just like on a teeter-totter, right? If you believe that your emotions are on one side and your rational thoughts on the other, when you're trying to communicate and you've got a high level of emotion, well, your rational thought's in the tank, so you're really not communicating what it is that you really need to communicate.
Right.
And then also in that communication process, you're not hearing effectively what the message is in return. And so that's why the communication breaks down, is because your brain does not function that way. When you're emotionally deregulated, your good thinking cells really stop working.
Yeah, and that's the part that I love to tap into with clients, is biologically what's going on with you. And if you know how the brain processes, it can't process simultaneous information at the same time. It's rapidly bouncing back and forth. But when you're emotionally flooded, it shuts out that cognitive piece. And so you can't go emotional, cognitive very effectively unless you're skilled and you're actually really practiced at it. Mm-hmm. And that's where the more practice you get at it and the benefits you see from that style of communication, it does.
And the shit show part of that is that this is not something that is intuitive, or is something that is oftentimes taught in childhood. It is something that is more of a higher functioning sort of process that it's why we're gainfully employed.
Right.
It is this process that understands that when you are emotionally flooded, you do need to take a time out. That whole premise of don't let the sun go down upon your wrath. I tell my clients, go to bed angry.
Yeah, for sure. Because
you aren't going to get your needs met if you're arguing and communicating when you're pissed off.
100%. The saying, you'll hear people and they'll come in and be like, my feelings matter. Don't tell me my feelings don't matter. Not saying your feelings don't matter. You just need to communicate them in a better way where they deserve to be heard. It has nothing to do with an invalidation of your feelings, but if you're communicating your feelings in a really shitty way, you're probably not going to be heard, probably not going to listen to, and there's going to be a lot of problems there, because you're just going to get more and more infuriated with the process in which you're coming about it.
So. And what's interesting about that is somebody saying, my feelings don't matter. Are they really getting down to what their true feelings are? I mean, we've talked about, huge. I'm really, really pissed off, but oftentimes it's what? Hurt, sad, fear.
Yeah, in that sidetrack. In that whole idea of processing deeper, I think that's the benefit of counseling as well, and an encouragement of mine always, is because we start to think very simply, we shorthand think, and we think across the breadth of it, and we just skim the surface of our feelings. But it takes time and self-reflection to really understand what those incidents really mean at a deeper level. And once you have that greater understanding and you're able to communicate that more effectively to your partner, to whoever else you want to have listened to, and they're able to see you at depth, then you have bonding, and then the relationship builds from there and it becomes more and more better.
More better.
More better. Pause on that.